You already have a personality. You know this. You know whether you're the person who talks first at a party or the one who finds the dog and stays there. You know if deadlines excite you or terrify you. You know if conflict makes you lean in or shut down. You've always assumed that life shaped you into who you are. Experience, trauma, the people who raised you. But what if most of that is wrong? What if the version of you sitting here right now was largely assembled before you ever took your first breath? That question used to be philosophy. Now it's data. Behavioral geneticist Robert Plomin spent 4 decades studying twins at King's College London. What he found shook the foundations of how we think about human development. Identical twins raised in completely different families, adopted apart, sometimes on different continents, grew up to have eerily similar personalities, similar fears, similar career paths, similar political leanings, even similar senses of humor. Not because they shared a childhood, because they shared a genome. Plomin's conclusion was radical. The environment, he argued, matters far less than we think. DNA does most of the work. Your personality, in scientific terms, is made up of what researchers call traits. The most studied framework is called the Big Five: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Every human on Earth can be roughly mapped across these 5 dimensions, and studies consistently show that somewhere between 40 and 60% of your position on each one is heritable, meaning it came from your genes. Think about what that actually means. More than half of whether you're anxious or calm, bold or cautious, imaginative or practical, was written into your biology before your parents even chose your name. But here's where it gets stranger. Researcher Thomas Bouchard led the famous Minnesota study of twins reared apart, which tracked 137 sets of twins who had been separated as infants and reunited as adults. What he documented went far beyond personality scores. Twins who had never met showed up to their reunion wearing the same color shirt. They had the same nervous laugh. They bit their fingernails the same way. They'd given their children the same names. One pair, both named Jim, had both married women named Linda, divorced them, and remarried women named Betty. Both named their dogs Toy. This was not coincidence. This was genetics expressing itself across 2 entirely separate lives. So the question stops being whether your genes influence who you are. They clearly do. The deeper question is, how does that actually work? What is happening inside your biology, before birth and in the earliest weeks of life, that sets the scaffolding of a personality? The answer starts in the womb. During fetal development, your brain is being constructed at breathtaking speed, roughly 250,000 neurons per minute at peak growth. And the structure of that brain, the connectivity of it, the sensitivity of certain regions, the baseline levels of key neurotransmitters is being guided by your genome. The density of dopamine receptors in your prefrontal cortex, for example, shapes how much reward you feel from new experiences. High density means novelty feels electric. Low density means it feels like noise. That difference is, in large part, genetic, and it correlates directly with where you land on the openness dimension of personality. Your serotonin transporter gene, a stretch of DNA sometimes called 5-HTT-LPR, influences how efficiently your brain recycles serotonin. A shorter version of this gene is associated with higher sensitivity to negative experiences, stronger threat responses, greater likelihood of anxiety. A longer version tends toward emotional resilience. You did not choose which version you received. It was assigned at conception, like your eye color. But genes are not destiny, and this is where the science refuses to be simple. Developmental psychologist Jerome Kagan spent his career studying what he called high-reactive and low-reactive infants at Harvard. When he exposed 4-month-old babies to novel stimuli, loud sounds, strong smells, unfamiliar objects, some babies kicked, cried, arched their backs. He called these infants high-reactive. Others stayed calm, curious, unbothered. He called these low-reactive. Kagan then followed these children for decades. High-reactive infants grew up to be more anxious, more cautious, more inhibited. Low-reactive infants grew up to be more socially bold, more risk-tolerant, more extroverted. The infant behavior at 4 months, before language, before memory, before any meaningful life experience, predicted who they would become as teenagers and young adults. The architecture was already there. And yet, some high-reactive infants became confident adults, some low-reactive ones became withdrawn. The environment was not irrelevant. It was just operating on a platform that biology,